Welcome back to the second episode of Nighttime. I'm your host, Patrick Previty, alongside Maddie Glass, and today we're going to be talking UCF Track and Field and college hoops. Now roll the intro because Nighttime starts now.
Things gon' change when I really hit the field. Undefeated chance, man, you know what's the deal. Tryna find a kid, I'm in the field doing drills. Boy, you just a sucker, you ain't never keep it real. 3 rings in my hand, I'm a warrior to the max. When I hang it up, they gon' have to give me plaques. Step up in the building and I only bring the facts. When I make a highlight, they gon' replay, run it back. Okay, always locked in, now I don't got time to lax. Saying he the best, he could take a lap. Batted 1,000 when you check the stats. Boy, is you ready? You ain't gotta ask.
Joining us today to talk UCF Track and Field is Jeremy Bland. Jeremy, welcome in. The Knights competed in their first split squad match last weekend. What player stuck out to you in the opening weekend?
So if you look at the Jimmy Carnes Invitational, the player that I think stood out the most would be Renaya Jones. She had an absolutely phenomenal time on the 60-meter women's hurdles. She set an all-time record for the Jimmy Carnes Invitational, and her final time was 8 seconds. It was 8.03 seconds.
Yeah, Renaya Jones is obviously a superstar, All-American who is entering her final season, so it's good to get a great start to this season for her. And then moving on to a player that stuck out to me was freshman Hannah Taylor. She is a freshman, obviously. She's a distance runner who's actually from Scotland, and she also ran at the Jimmy Carnes Invitational last week. The two squads were they did a little split squad. One of them was in, I believe it was Kentucky, or Louisville, and then the other one was in Gainesville. So she ran the 800 meter and placed first in the event with a time of 2 hours, 11 minutes, and 41 seconds. This is actually the program's 7th best time in history. So it just shows the talent of this team. You know, she's a freshman and she went out and had the 7th best time in history. So I'm excited to see how she progresses and if she competes in any other events, how she does. So, yeah, and then moving on to Patrick, who is a player that stuck out to you?
Yeah, UCF had a great weekend, and it was in part due to Aisha Wilson. She had a very strong prelim round last Friday. She competes in the 60 meters, and she had a time of 7.51 seconds in the prelims, and she was able to beat that time just barely, but just enough at 7.5 to stay in at 7th in the very competitive field. And then in the final round of her match, she was able to move up to 4th place by matching that time exactly. It was her second best performance to start a season in her UCF career, and I think that really helped UCF Track and Field a lot this weekend.
And then, Jeremy, what do you kind of expect from this UCF Track and Field team going forward?
So honestly, I would say I feel like they have really high expectations, especially how they performed at the last meet. Like last meet, they had a lot of people put up their own personal records and stuff like that. Like especially in shot put, Natalia Madison and Yvette Harris both had their own personal records set in the last meet. So I think that we could really look to see how they progress and how they keep doing great in the future meets.
Yeah, I agree. And then, obviously, there's some new talent, some old talent that we can just continue to see progress, and it's going to be exciting to watch. I think they have one home meet. Patrick, you going to go out to that one?
Sure, why not? I would go out to a UCF Track and Field home meet. I don't mind.
Jeremy, you going to be there?
I can't guarantee it with work, but I'll make my best effort to be there.
Well, that's all the time we have for UCF Track and Field this week. Stay tuned because we'll probably talk about it some more. But moving on to Patrick's Nightlight of the Week. Patrick, take it away.
My Nightlight is a male tennis player that transferred in from UT Arlington. He's a sophomore, born in Argentina, and keeping with the theme of strong opening weekends, he helped men's tennis sweep their doubleheader against UC Wilmington and Coastal Carolina. Find out who he is after the break.
So, Tyler Brown, right? It says in my notes you're an Oklahoma fan.
That is correct.
So, let me ask you, bud. Is Texas back?
All right, I put on a brave face a lot, but this year, I'm really scared that they are, man. okay? They just beat Alabama. They're going to be top 4 in the rankings. And last year, they beat us 48-0.
Yeah.
It was humiliating. We're the Oklahoma Sooners. We were the best ever. We were talk of the town. We had Baker, Kyler, and Jalen 3 years in a row. And now, are we good? I don't know. We haven't won a national title since 2000. We're number 18, I think, and nothing matters, dude.
Sometimes we build up these walls thinking they're impenetrable. But sometimes you have to knock these walls down to build up bigger and stronger ones. And you got to be tough through that. It's hard being an Oklahoma fan at this time, but grass is always going to be greener on the other side of the hill, buddy.
Is it? I cannot live through a Texas national championship. I can't. I'll never recover.
Do you want to talk about Lincoln Riley?
What'd you just say to me?
I just want to know if you want to talk about Lincoln Riley.
You listen here, you court-ordered quack. You mentioned that.
Welcome back. My Nightlight with Santiago Gianmichele, who helped UCF start off perfect in singles matches with the 2-0 record himself to go along with a doubles win with his partner Leighton Cronje. They are the 20th ranked duo, and now moving into women's college hoops. Maddie, take us away.
Yes, we're going to start with a little bit of women's basketball, starting with the UCF Knights, who have a 9-6 record. They obviously started the season really well, started 9-1, but have gotten to kind of the meat of the schedule, that Big 12 conference play, and are actually 0-5. They have losses to Oklahoma, Oklahoma State, Kansas, Cincinnati, and West Virginia. Andrew, how does this performance of the team make you feel so far about our women's basketball team?
I mean, having been in attendance to the last game against West Virginia, which was a pretty big loss, I believe like 16, 17 points, it's not the most promising thing in the world, obviously. There's been one win for the women's basketball team since December 11th, and currently sitting last in the Big 12. But, I mean, also looking at last season, we started off 4-11 against conference opponents, or at least that's just how we did throughout the entirety of the season, whereas now we're starting off 0-5.
I think it's also notable that they did lose a close one to Cincinnati on a last-second layup. And a player that, despite the losses, has been playing really well is Caitlin Peterson. She's averaging 20 points per game, 4 rebounds, has 3 30-point games this season, I believe 7 games with 20-plus point games, and is shooting really well from 3, I believe 34.6% on 7 attempts per game. So it's a lot of attempts. She's playing really well. Patrick, when do you think the Knights get their first conference win of the season?
That is a great question. Starting out 9-1 was great, but now conference play has absolutely put a wall between us and a very successful season. But I would say maybe somewhere around Cincinnati. They play them on February 7th. Like you said, that was a very close game, and I could see us winning against them. Maybe it'd be a nice little early Valentine's Day present to go see UCF women's basketball win.
And then they do play number 4 Baylor in Waco, Texas next, I believe this week. Andrew, do you think they get their conference win there, or are they going to have to wait a little bit longer?
I think it's just going to have to be a matter of patience because Baylor's shown grit and grime throughout the entirety of the season, and considering our 0-5 record against conference opponents this year, it's not the safest bet to put on. But, I mean, if you want to go for it, go for it. But I'm personally expecting another loss.
Yeah, they just need to build up a little more offensive consistency. But moving on to some news around women's college basketball, starting with the best team in the country, number 1, South Carolina. They're 16-0. Patrick, tell me about the South Carolina team.
Yeah, South Carolina's been dominant this year. They last year they started out like 24-0, I believe, before they had their first loss. Now they're still undefeated, and they lead the nation in a slew of categories, and they're top 5 and a bunch of others. They are 4th in total offense and points with 90.3. They got they're 3rd in defense, only allowing 51.4 a game. They lead the nation in blocks, point differential, and field goal percentage. And for the most part, I would say that they're one of the best, or if not the best team in the nation. They just don't have the superstars that many people would notice as far as like casual college hoops fans are concerned. I mean, obviously you have Caitlin Clark and JuJu Watkins, who are also just taking the NCAA women's game by storm.
And speaking of South Carolina, so they actually beat somebody. I was looking at some of their box scores, 99-29. I mean, 29. So they're getting some big wins.
Yeah, they just beat, I think they just beat Kentucky like 98
Yeah,
to 36.
I think they played like one close game, like a game within 10 points. So they're just dominating. Andrew, do you think they're the best team in the country?
For sure, for sure. I mean, you guys were looking at blowouts. I'm looking at Mississippi Valley State, 101 to 19. Let that sink in. That's like almost 19% of the offense that South Carolina put
the
up.
opposing team scored 19 total points.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and to 101.
that is definitely something we've never seen before. And speaking of more things we've never seen before, JuJu Watkins. She is an absolute star for USC. She's a true freshman guard. She's averaging 26 points per game, 7 rebounds, 3 assists on 43, 38, 82 splits. Andrew, how do you feel about JuJu Watkins?
I mean, just looking at her stats, the first thing that it reminded me of was none other than Caitlin Clark. She's averaging a little bit less assists, obviously, especially to that proportion. But the 2.5 steals, I think, is her most valuable trait. She plays like a bigger guard, pretty much, because she's averaging what 7, 8 assists, and then obviously her scoring numbers. But her steals, her defense, that's what puts USC on notice across the entirety of the country. She's just a great all-around player, and she's not somebody you want to go up against, especially in the paint.
Yeah, she has 6 30-point games already and has actually been named a Pac-12 record freshman of the week 9 times this season. So she's just, the next face of college basketball, women's college basketball.
And I think also, just to jump in, I think what makes her really special is how well she also plays against some of the top teams in the country. Just in the last game against UCLA, she had 32 points, 10 boards. And then against number 7 Ohio State earlier in the season, 32, 6, and 5. And then in the first game against UCLA, she was still really good with 27 and 11. Like, she's not just feasting on like lower level competition. She's easily one of the best players in the country as a freshman, and is playing well against some of the top teams in the nation.
I will say, looking at her scores, yes, she's put up a bunch of points, but in that game against UCLA, she did struggle a little bit from 3. She shot 0 for 6, which can be concerning, but obviously that's not her job. She's putting in a bunch of rebounds, a bunch of points, and being a 6'2 guard in women's basketball gives you a huge height advantage, a huge size advantage against other opponents. So I think if she capitalizes on that, lets other people maybe take over the perimeter, they're set, completely set. Maybe even could pull up an upset against South Carolina if it comes down to that.
Yeah, and we have to remember she is only a freshman. Like, she's only played 13 games this season. So we're just gonna see continue. She's just gonna get better. She's just gonna improve her shooting, improve her passing. So it's gonna be really fun to watch her for the next 4 years. And hopefully this USC team does some damage. They obviously upset UCLA last week. But speaking of the number 2 team in the country, we have none other than Caitlin Clark leading the Iowa Hawkeyes to a 17-1 record. Patrick, start us off. Tell me about Caitlin Clark and her stardom.
Caitlin Clark might be one of the best women's college basketball players that we've ever seen. She's definitely the best women's college basketball, I would say undisputed right now as it stands. I think there's a lot of great players.
Agree.
Yeah.
Her run from last year, I think pretty much cemented her. I mean, just become a national phenom, almost a walking triple-double essentially, 31, 7, and 7. 48% shooting from the field. What is she shooting from the free throw line? 83%, then I think 43% from 3.
She's putting up Steph Curry numbers.
Yeah, she's literally like putting up numbers that you would see from like Steph Curry or somebody like that. Just unbelievable.
Andrew, do you think Caitlin Clark is like one of the best players in college basketball history?
College basketball history, I don't know, and I only say that because I haven't been exposed to it for super long, not even for like a year at this point. But from what I've seen, I think men and women's college basketball, she is by far the best. Just the highlights, the stats, the performances, how far she takes her team in conference championship from the small state that is Iowa. Like it's not, they're not looking forward to anything, but she's out here, like Patrick said, putting up 31 points per game. That's the most in NCAA. 8 assists, which is second. So already with that, you have one of, if not the best offensive players you could imagine. And on top of that, she's being efficient, and she's still getting her rebounds. Like, it's just the all-around player that you would want.
And she just needs one last thing on her resume, and that's national championship. And hopefully Iowa can do that this year. I think I might be rooting for them. But moving on to my nightlight of the week, it is actually a whole team who made headlines last week at a competition right here in Orlando. Stay tuned for when we come back.
Hello, my name is Ty Patton, and I am a licensed sports therapist. And today I'm here to help 3 people cope with their misfortunate teams. Maddie, when was the last time the Bears won anything?
I don't think I've ever experienced that feeling.
Maddie, the MVP is not a real award.
But it was voted on.
By kids, Maddie.
Yeah, it was a real award, and I think that's one thing that we can, we made history with that moment. We don't have to talk about Trubisky or the draft because I really don't like to think about that. It really just makes me, I'm sorry.
Now, Maddie, is Mitch Trubisky still with the team?
No. I'm not sure he's in the NFL.
You know,
I know Mahomes is, and he was drafted ahead of him. Actually, Mitch Trubisky, it was a bad one. And now we have Justin Fields, who I have belief in. And the worst thing about sports, it's the hope it gives you.
Maddie, at times like this, sometimes we as fans like to hold on to what was.
Yeah,
But
my dad
sometimes
still
you
talks about the 85 Bears like it was yesterday. I texted him yesterday. I was like, how about this Bears game? And he was just like, this is so sad. I watched with my neighbor's lifelong Bears fan. I watched with them. It was just, you can't describe the feelings that were showcased in that living room. It is the UCF cheer team. They won the 2024 D1A co-ed title. This is their 4th championship, and they won it by scoring a 97.3 in their event score, 0 deductions. Congrats to the UCF cheer team on this great accomplishment and an excellent season. Now, moving on to some basketball, because suddenly UCF is just a basketball school. Huge win last night versus Texas. Started off with that. Andrew, what'd you see from this game? What impressed you?
I mean, I didn't see anything because
Okay.
I didn't watch it. But even if it were in our home court, I wouldn't be there. Shout out to the Sports Business Management program not letting me leave class. But no, it was a great performance all around. I mean, I need to throw it in there. Ithiel Horton did his thing, right? Ithiel Horton's going to do his thing. But Shamari Allen showed up, 17 points, 7 assists. Jalen Sellers, 24 points, 5 rebounds in just 33 minutes of play. And I think the main discrepancy in this game is the rebounding advantage that UCF had. 37 rebounds to Texas 22, including 12 offensive rebounds to their 4. So we had a lot of second chance points, a lot of aggression in the paint, especially on the offensive end, and that's what's going to put you forward. That's what's going to put you ahead of other teams, especially in the Big 12, where it's so just compact. The best conference in basketball, in my opinion, which I'm sure we'll get to later.
Definitely. I agree. We'll get to that later, though. And UCF was down by as many as 16 points in this game. Patrick, we got to think, are we reevaluating our expectations for the Knights this season?
I definitely think it is time to reevaluate what is going on with UCF Knights basketball right now. I would not have said that after the Kansas game, and I didn't say that after the Kansas game. But if you're looking at our schedule, our strength of schedule, we're 7th in the nation. 12 of the teams in the top 14 in the Big 12 have a strength of schedule that's that high in the nation. And for the most part, I would say the Knights really only have to get to about 18 wins, I think, and then beat a couple teams in the Big 12 tournament. And then I think they could possibly be like last 4 in type of scenario. We might need another game to win. I mean, I'm curious what Dario thinks about that. Do you think that the Knights could potentially make the NCAA tournament?
Yeah. I mean, the Knights have been playing great, especially in the second half. They've been playing great defense. When they play at home, they just get into their thing, you know. The UCF students have been great as a fan base. As I said, especially in the second half, their defense get better, their offense get better, the threes start coming up. So yeah, I think they have a pretty good chance. Yeah.
I do think they can beat anyone. We've seen that with the Kansas game, especially at home, because their defense, they play hard on defense. And if you're going to play tough defense, especially in the Big 12, you can be competitive with anyone, even if you have those offensive lulls. But let's get into more of the Big 12 because it is just a madhouse. Amazing basketball teams all around. Patrick, start us off. Tell me about this Big 12 dog park.
Yeah, like I said earlier, this Big 12 is the most competitive conference and probably the best conference in college basketball right now. We did just beat Kansas, but they're still top. I believe they're 3rd in the nation still right now with all the losses that happened in the top 5. And there are teams like Houston, who we actually go play next. I think if UCF were to win that game, we probably would be ranked. But including Houston. And then we have teams like Texas Tech, Baylor, just all great teams. Kansas State, we just lost to BYU last week. They're a very good team. They're ranked. They'll probably be a little bit higher than they were I believe we played them and they were 16.
They're 20th
They're
right now.
20th right now. Okay, so maybe they'll go up to the mid-teens. But for the most part, this is just an insanely tough conference. I mean, there are only a couple bottom feeders, including West Virginia and Oklahoma State.
And Texas, by the way.
And Texas, but I didn't want to put them there. I mean, it was still a
I'll
close
put
game.
them there. I'll put them
Okay.
there. I know they were ranked before the season, but it has not been pretty for them. Andrew, we just mentioned this. Do you think they're the best conference in college basketball?
100%, 100%. You look at the competition, you look at the teams that historically have been, have performed well, they're in the Big 12. You look at teams that will perform well, they're in the Big 12. And then, as Patrick said, some of the best strength of schedule, because a lot of the conference play is against some of the best teams in the entirety of NCAA basketball. So I think, yeah, lo and behold, Big 12, the best conference in basketball.
And I have a question for the couch. We're going to move back to the Texas UCF game really quick before we get into the rest of college basketball. After the game, the Texas head coach had a major issue with all of the UCF players doing the horns down celebration. I'm curious as to what you guys might think. Obviously, we might be a little bit biased coming from UCF, but just curious of what you guys think, because I personally thought I thought the coach was just a little butthurt.
Yeah.
Well, I think I don't know. I don't know how much how important is that sign for Texas, but I think it shouldn't be that much of an issue. He should focus on his team, on getting better, getting better advice to his players, and then I feel like he should focus on other things rather than what the UCF did after the game.
Yeah, I have to agree. I think at some point, if you get hurt by something like this, I mean, first of all, we're UCF. Coming from the AAC, our biggest rival was right across the street in the USF Bowl. So we've been doing this for a while, and now we're going to the Big 12 with an even bigger team who has horns. But now we're doing this. It's not like every other team in the Big 12 hasn't been doing this for I don't know how many years. We just got here. We're the new kid on the block. No reason to get mad at us if you're not going to get mad at them, And then I think just I saw the video this morning. His reaction was funny. He's like, "Don't do that."
Yeah.
Chill.
I think it's a little bit of frustration boiling over for the Texas coach, because obviously they have not played well this season. I believe he was an interim coach last year, promoted, so we'll see how that goes. But let's move on back to news around college basketball. And actually, with all those ranked 2 teams losing last week, UConn has slid into that number 1 spot. Dario, do you think UConn deserves to be the number 1 team in the nation?
Yeah, I think UConn have a pretty good team, and with all the other teams losing, I think they deserve it. Yeah, they deserve it. With Purdue at 2nd, Kansas at 3rd, which we beat, by the way. So yeah, I think UConn have its merits to be there. Yeah.
Patrick, do you feel the same way?
Yeah, I do feel the same way. I think UConn's one of the best teams in the nation. They're obviously ranked number 1 right now. They just beat Creighton last night pretty handily, and they have slotted now into the top spot in the conference. I believe they're tied with Seton Hall, both with a 6-1 conference record, I believe, or 6-2 conference record. They did lose to Seton Hall, and Seton Hall was my pick to win that conference, but for the most part, I think UConn has taken care of business. They're definitely one of the best shooting teams, I believe, in the nation. Their field goal percentage is 49.8% from the field, and I think that's usually a good sign or indicative of a good tournament run or a good conference tournament run.
Go ahead.
Sorry. And by the way, last time UConn lost a game was against Kansas, which we win.
Yes. Okay. Well, UCF automatic first team in the nation.
Yeah,
I agree.
we're the best.
Now
already.
let's move on to a team that has been a part of college basketball, but in the mix for a while. Gonzaga. They are out of the top 25 for the first time since 2016. Andrew, do you think there's any way to turn this around for Gonzaga? Obviously, they lost 4 of their top 5 scorers, including Drew Timme.
Yeah, Drew Timme, I know now he's in the G League. I forgot what team he's on, but I saw him.
I want to say it's the Pistons, but it's probably not.
I don't think it's the Pistons.
If he was on the Pistons, I hope the Pistons would have called him up by now.
Oh my gosh, literally. That would actually be kind of cool to see. But anyway.
Let him stop bad.
Yeah, no, Gonzaga, it's been a little bit of a train wreck. They're, like Maddie said, out of the top 25. They currently have 5 votes received to be in the top 25 rankings, but there's a bunch of other teams ahead of them. Not exactly sure what's going on this year with Gonzaga, but I'm happy to see. I've been an avid Gonzaga hater, especially since Jalen Suggs hit that game-winning buzzer beater against UCLA that one time.
Respect Jalen Suggs.
Yeah, no, I can't. Not after that.
All right. Wait, you are a UCLA fan? correct?
Yeah, like it's like my like Camden's Ohio State thing. That's my like.
Well, Camden's a
side piece.
diehard Ohio State fan. So
Yeah, it's not
really
the same.
quick
It's not the
before we
same.
run out of time, UCLA, what's wrong with them? You,
Here-
Andrew.
Me? Oh,
Yeah.
what's wrong with UCLA? I mean, it's been what 10 losses, like 8-10 record. Those 10 losses have been in the last 15 games. Started off decently, obviously, just do the math. But no, I mean UCLA hasn't been as efficient as it wants to be. It's players haven't been putting up to par with what we're expecting, especially out of last season, and now they're not even in the top 25. So I mean,
All
there
right,
goes
Frankie,
UCLA. There
Frankie
goes the
is
Pac-12.
cutting us off. Primetime picks really quick. Number 4, Iowa State at number 19, TCU. Patrick, let's go around a circle. Patrick, go first.
I'll go chalk with Iowa State.
Dario?
Same, Ohio State.
Andrew?
I'll go Iowa State just because I hate TCU.
Okay, I'm going TCU, obviously. That's all the time we have for Nighttime this week. Thank you so much for watching, everybody, and we will see you next week.
Things gon' change when I really hit the field. Undefeated champs, man, you know what's the deal. Tryna find a kid, I'm in the field doing drills. Boy, you just a sucker, you ain't never keep it real. 3 rings in my hand, I'm a warrior to the max. When I hang it up, they gon' have to give me plaques. Step up in the building and